I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus, I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus, I was evil. I never shook babies.
It's like you've got to smash that like button.
Yeah.
And on it early. Like and subscribe at the smash button at Smashburger. So I've been associating a lot recently, just because.
Yeah.
So like that, even my last little nickname here in the middle, not this one, but the one for the last episode was like Gavin Penton. Here we go again, which is a meditation I take. Just like right, and my fiance is like I'll text her. She's like, I can't tell you seriously, you just word associating. Smash that like button, smash burger, just like
Burger King, King of the Jungle, Jungle to Jungle, starring Tim Allen.
And now I'm just word associating. Do you ever watch documentary Now?
Oh yeah, I've seen a few episodes. I saw the one with Jack Black, where it was kind of making fun of like the Vice documentary.
Yeah. Oh, was Jack Black in that? Was that him? Right. Yeah. That's drones or whatever.
I think so.
I've
seen a few episodes, but I know Fred Armisen and Bill Hader and
well, it's their show. They're great. And there's one where Bill Hader's doing like a monologue. I don't know exactly what I've looked up what they're parodying, but I don't know where it comes from exactly. But he's just like doing a monologue, and he's like saying something that happened. And then like it'll actually go to that person's side of it, and it's like completely different. And one of them he's like, and now I'm just free associating. And I'm in a great womb and I'm free associating. I don't know. It's very funny. I recommend that episode. I've seen it like 10 times.
Yeah, I got to watch more. I only watched like 3 or 4 episodes, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So
yeah, it's good. Actually, there's a episode in that where they're parodying a documentary called "It's like the best worst thing that ever happened," which is a documentary about the Merrily We Roll Along, which is the show my fiance's in, how like it bombed in the 80s, and it was like one of the biggest bombings ever. But it's obviously come back, and now it's very popular. It was like cast really. I asked her about, I'm like, why did it bomb so bad? It's like because they were casting people who were like teenagers who were supposed to be in like their 50s or something. Like it was just I don't know exactly why, but they documentary Now they do a funny parody about that, which is really good. It's called The Co-op. It's like just people living in a co-op, a very New York City thing. It's like the Doorman singing a song, and just like it's good.
Yeah,
highly recommend. All right,
so
then.
I watched a movie, an interesting movie that the rest of you peasants will not be able to watch until tonight. So yeah, I watched Oppenheimer. It was I got to watch it through my job as a writer at grunge.com. The article will go live tomorrow. But yeah, it was interesting. So like every once in a while they'll kind of put, like on the board of like topics that you can pick to write about. They'll be like, hey, does anybody live in LA or New York? Because we got advance tickets for this movie. And most of the time, they get, napped up pretty quickly because these websites are pretty nerdy. So it's usually like a Marvel movie or a Harry Potter movie or a Star Wars movie. So of course, people jump on those really quickly. There was an article that needed to be written about Oppenheimer, and I jumped on it. And then she's like, okay, cool. Yeah. So next week.
Hells yeah.
And it was cool. It was, I've been looking forward to it. I'm a pretty big Christopher Nolan fan, and it was cool. I get giddy because it's like, oh, like I'm getting emails from like NBC Universal, like, oh, like here's your free parking, and then and all these instructions and all this stuff, and then
sweet free parking.
Yeah, free parking, and it's $30 at Universal Studios. So like, fuck yeah.
Oh, so that's where it was. You went to Universal Studios.
Sort of. So right outside Universal Studios, it's called Universal City Walk, which is like it's a bunch of restaurants, and it's kind of like Hollywood Boulevard, but much cleaner.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely more family friendly. So
I'm kidding. I like Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, it's got a cool grimy charm to it, but but this is definitely more theme park oriented. So it's like big neon signs and everything. So that's where the movie theater is. So Universal has an AMC there. And so I was there with a bunch of other journalists, and it's funny. It's like when I'm watching the movie,
taking notes. Are you guys taking notes? What are you taking notes?
There's not quite enough diversity in this 1940s war film.
Hey, don't spoil it for me. But do we win at the end?
Yes, I'm just gonna fucking say yeah. The Allies win. We dropped the bombs on Japan. I know.
What if they? I don't know. Were they doing like a alternate history where we become like buddies at the end? We don't have to drop the bomb.
No, yeah, it was a Tarantino historical reimagining. So like Eli Roth comes and he kicks the bomb away, and then it's like, oh, that's how it works. But
instead we bombed Germany because of equity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny as I'm watching the movie, you know, like I'm not paying attention to like the diversity, but every once in a while, like I would, because you know the movie mostly takes place in the 30s and 40s, and Oppenheimer was a professor, and if I'm not mistaken, I think America was still pretty segregated at that time, and so once in a while I would see a black student in the back. I'm like, is that did somebody?
How'd you get in here?
I said, did somebody force Nolan? Like you got to put just put one in the back. Just to check them off, like, just so we can get that the Oscar recognition.
I started. There's a really long podcast about it. I listened to some of it for last podcast on the left. They did like I think a 5-part series on it, which I feel like I'll go back to after I watch the movie, maybe.
Yeah.
But was this in California where the lab was?
No, it was in New Mexico, but they did parts of it. I didn't know this, but Oppenheimer did teach at Berkeley, at UC Berkeley.
Really?
So yeah.
Okay.
So that was kind of cool. But as for the film itself, it was great. I loved it. I would be very surprised if it did not. I mean, you know, it seems like every year there's like one movie that just kind of gets like 8 or 9 where it just kind of sweeps, you know, all the awards. Sure. I'd be surprised if this was not that movie.
Right.
I'm putting my predictions now. I think it's get at least nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay because it is based on.
Just nominations or wins?
Yeah. Just nominations. Just nominations.
Oh, nominations. Yeah.
Cillian Murphy was pretty great. There was not a whole lot of range to his character, but I also think that there was never a moment where I'm like, this is a Cillian Murphy movie.
He's brooding a lot.
Yeah, he was just brooding.
He has a brooding face.
Yeah, you know, resting brooding face.
Resting brooding face. I brood, so I get it.
Yeah. I thought actually Robert Downey Jr. was actually pretty terrific. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
Okay. Who did he play?
He played this guy, something Strauss, just some government guy who had a vendetta against Oppenheimer. Yeah, just some bureaucrat dude who had it in for him. But one thing I do like about when Chris Nolan, did you ever see Dunkirk?
Yes.
I thoroughly liked that one, and what I liked about it was that technically it was a war movie, but it didn't feel like a war movie. It was more like an escape thriller. It wasn't like and so it's kind of a similar thing here. Like this wasn't just a typical biopic. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a complex figure. He did some good things and he did some bad things, and we're gonna let you. Like there was some of that, but it was also like, you know, like the first half of the movie is kind of like a thriller. It's like, you know, the Nazis are working on a nuclear bomb, and we have to do it before they do it. So it's like there's like this like, you know, like the ticking clock of we have to beat the Nazis, and then like the last part of the movie becomes more of like a legal sort of political thriller drama. So I was like, oh, so I like how it's not just a typical thing. It's like, no, I'm going to weave through multiple genres outside of the typical thing.
That was like a very real fear that I think it's lost in history. With like the Nazis are going to beat us to the bomb, and then just like win, just like take over the world. And Germans were like the best scientists and engineers, like they were the best. And when I learned that, 'cause I'm very much an isolationist. I mean, even like World War II was the last war I think we should have gotten involved in. That was after we were attacked.
Yeah.
But when you hear that, it's okay, that does add a different dimension to it.
Yeah.
That like, if they get this thing, excuse me, like they're gonna use it on us.
Yeah.
They're gonna nuke New York, DC, which that wouldn't be the worst thing, but like they would take over the world with Japan, of course, also they were insane and had those ambitions. And it's like, okay, I get it a little more why there was that interventionist side to like a lot of Americans, like the government especially.
Yes.
Because that that would be so like, can you imagine? We take it for granted like we won, like we created it.
Yeah.
Like what if we did it? Like,
right.
Could you imagine? It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of insane to think about.
It is. and it did make me like really proud of America in a weird way. Like I definitely understand like the moral conundrum of like, should we have dropped the bomb on Hiroshima? And it's like, and the movie does explore that quite a bit, but like one thing that this movie did really well that I like, it's one of my favorite cliches in movies, which is like the recruitment montage of like,
they're always fun getting the gang together. I
love it.
It's like whenever they get the gang together, like Rick and Morty did a whole episode about that. Just like everyone's like, son of a bitch, I'm in. Like, whatever. Usually it's like a heist movie. That's like a big part of the heist movie. It's like, this guy's the locksmith. This guy's like, the bombs expert. And it's like everyone has their specialty.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Here's
like a bunch of like German guys, just like, I also break the particles.
It's so funny, and I think it's a testament to Chris Nolan, his talent as a filmmaker to make something very nerdy to seem so cool and thrilling. Like it felt almost like a superhero movie where it's like, so what's his face? Oppenheimer's obviously like the center of it, but then the military's like, well, who else should we recruit? And it's like, okay, well, we got to get this guy. He teaches at the University of Chicago. Nobody knows particle physics better than him, so it's like we got to go there. And then it's like, oh, well, we got this. Get this guy. He's the best theoretical physicist there is. So we got to go to Cambridge. And this is like just kind of zipping across. It's like it was cool. It was thrilling.
Those are very I know exactly what I mean. Those are very fun scenes. I call them the getting the gang together scenes. It
is. It's really cool. And then
does he say the line, "I am become death"?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, I don't get it. Why does he say it like that?
Because he's quoting the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah.
But isn't that redundant? Like, why are you saying to be twice? I am death. I become death. Why is it I am become death? I don't get it.
I'm not sure. I don't understand the full meaning of it, but I know that he was a big fan of classic literature. So I'm glad he was always quoting it.
Bhagavad Gita or part of it. In that class I've talked about in college. Where we read stuff we read like Hitler, we read Marx, we read the Bible.
Goddamn.
It was an amazing class. I thought there was a bunch on this show.
Yeah.
That class should be like, that's what college is about. Like liberal arts college. I mean, freshman year, it was very cool. This was our science college. That it's every freshman takes this class. So the whole class is reading the same books. And it's supposed to be about debate and different cultures and all that. And it's really, and I'm glad I checked a couple of years ago to make sure we still do this, because I don't know if they're still reading Hitler. Like, I don't know if they still read, like, and I was looking, of course, now they read, like, what's his name? Not
like Kennedy type shit.
I don't think I saw Kennedy on there. I hope not. Ta-Nehisi Coates is more respectable. I've tried to read Between the World and Me. Even at my most shit lib, I was like, this book's ridiculous. Anyway, but he's more respected than like Kennedy, who is just a snake oil.
Total huck.
Anyway, I didn't mean to derail us there. Last thing I'll say is that it was us in Columbia. Like, Columbia actually adopted it from us. I can't imagine a freshman undergrad class at Columbia reading Mein Kampf.
Right.
I can't. Right. And when I say reading, like, we didn't read like all of these texts start to finish. It would be like sections from it. Okay, you're reading this. That would just take too long. But we did read part of the Bhagavad Gita in that. And anyway, so there's a funny Rogan clip with Dave Chappelle when Chappelle was on his show, and Rogan loves to quote that, like, whenever it comes up, and most people are like, oh my god, like, damn, like, that's deep. And then Dave Chappelle, I won't quote him exactly, because he says like, and then there's some N-word thing next to him going, shut the fuck up.
Oh man.
Am I lagging at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, you were a little too, but I just see. I don't see myself lying. I see myself kind of like goes black and then goes back. But I don't know. My fiance is streaming Sex in the City, so I might be doing it. But yeah, apparently there's a new like a reboot, not a reboot of it, like because it's not like new characters. Like it's the same characters, but I basically saw the splash screen of it. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I see they've diversified. Yeah, it's like half of them are black women. It's like
there was when that first dropped, there was a clip that went viral on Twitter for a bit, and it involved that redhead chick, the redhead chick, and like she's sitting like I think like a book club with all these like diverse intersectional ladies, and she like keeps fumbling over like their pronouns and shit, and like and so like I'm just kind of like, I mean, it was taken out of context, but was the show taking that seriously, or was it making fun of?
That's a good that happened in Shameless too, where I've said this before. There's a scene in Shameless where Ian, and I love the show. This is one of my favorite shows for many seasons. Ian, who's like the gay one, he's like just the gay brother, but he's not like effeminate. He like actually joins the army. He's like the guy he's banging is like the neighborhood bully who, of course, it's kind of typical. Like he bullies everyone else because he's not comfortable with himself. Yeah. Spoiler alert for season 1 there, but Ian's just like, he's a dude, but he's gay. And then he joins some what's like a safe house type thing for at-risk youth, and they all have the pronouns and the non this and the me that, and in the episode it's like, and this is so and so, their pronouns are she that, and they're this, and it's going through, and he's like very confused and flustered and all that. And to me, that's like critiquing it. Like, no, this is just LARPing. This is make believe. This is just people. And I get it. They're living in some shelter in Chicago. They're not accepted at home, but this isn't real life. But apparently the writer came out, or the director came out, it's like, oh no, that's like, we're not making fun of that. Like that's totally legit. So I think it was the same there. Like, no, Miranda better get it together and learn these pronouns.
Right.
That would be my assumption.
Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah, well, it's. I don't think you're gonna be watching that.
Yeah, I know. I was this close to checking that show out, but
well, that show was fun because I feel like when that started, it was very much. It's almost like when that show started to when this news, like literally an episode dropped today, because she said it drops on Thursdays. It's almost like different ways of feminism. Like it feels like that when that show first started, it was third wave feminism,
right?
Which was like basically have sex with whoever you want, with as many partners as you want, and like the Hillary Clinton kind of, you can have it all, be the corporate woman, don't get yourself tied, like. And now it's like we're kind of past that. We're at a different phase of feminism now. Yeah. This show that now is, and maybe that's the point of contention in the show. I don't know. I don't give a shit, but that much time has passed where I don't think that it would fly anymore with what they were talking about and doing. Like flies in would be what was acceptable for like the demographic they're trying to hit, like what they would think they would be trying to hit, where it very much was then.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sex,
yes, great segue.
Well, no, because Oppenheimer, it was.
Right.
I won't give anything away, but I mean, it was a very straightforward.
Pretty
brief.
I need details.
Yeah.
I need position
how many thrusts?
Position. How many thrusts? Who? Yeah, because I lament the death of the sex scene a lot. Not so much as it's like a requirement. In fact, I think far too many movies shoehorn in a love angle that it's like just totally innocuous. Like it's just totally not necessary.
Right.
But I think like the sex scene used to be like a big thing, and this is the first movie I've heard in a while where like people are talking about that.
Yeah.
Where even sex scenes now, and I feel a lot of movies, it's like more for like comedic relief because something funny happens, or it's unfortunately like maybe like rape, like a crime. Where this is this just two consenting adults getting after it?
Yeah. So, awesome. So this actually, this is something I want to ask you. So it's like, why do you think that, like, you know, there are numerous movies in the past where there was like a big sex scene? Was it because like there were the actors involved had never been
think,
nude before, or
I
was
think
it like...
no, I think it's the proliferation of porn. There's just so much porn now; it's not as important.
Well, yeah, but you know, but before that, like, you know, like say like in the night, you know, for example, you know, and this is probably a good segue for Paul Verhoeven thing, where like Basic Instinct, like, you know, the scene where she crosses her legs, where it's like, like, was it because it was more graphic than they were expecting at the time, or was it because like, whoa, Sharon Stone has never gotten naked before, and now here she's bearing it?
No, I what I'm saying when I'm saying porn, I mean, well, one, I wouldn't say that's a sex scene. That's more about like a power play, and that I do want to talk about that scene in specific. But sex is a big part of. I was listening to a Verhoeven, which is actually the topic of the episode, a Verhoeven interview, and he said, like, basically he's like, yeah, sex and violence, it's interesting. This is what people want. Right. And Basic Instinct, that is the movie, sex, violence. Literally, the first scene is violence during sex. It's a murder that takes place while two people are having sex, and one partner killing the other. And that is a little different than the sex scene, which used to be one. I do think it was people liked to see their stars naked. Like, I think that was interesting. But then there was the creation of the like self-tape, like Kardashian, a lot of like famous people. Like, it didn't become that interesting anymore because there were like leaked sex tapes a lot, and just pornography. You can get pornography in 3 seconds, and you could see anything that's ever happened. And I think while porn has existed for a very long time, like, it's just not. I don't think the draw is there anymore for people to see it in their movie. I think they're looking for something else because they can get that kind of thrill on the internet.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I guess I'm just asking though, like, when there was a scene that where people were talking about, it's like, why were they talking about a scene? Was it because the actor had never been naked before, and it was like, oh, whoa, this actor or this actress is finally showing it, or was it because it was more graphic than people were expecting? Was it because I guess that's what I'm asking.
I think it was
just because the actors.
Yeah, and even still, I think it's like, oh shit, like you're seeing Scarlett Johansson's ass or something. Like, there's always that, but at the same time, I think that was way more impactful on culture in the, you know, when were the first movies when people were getting naked? 60s? There's like, were there sex scenes in 50s movies? Like, I don't think so.
At least not in mainstream movies. Yeah. Like, you saw the after, like people putting their clothes back on in Psycho, which came out in 1960.
And even then they're probably like a bra, right? Like, and that was like a big deal. So
it was like one of those big 50s bras too.
They're like conical. Like, oh, my eye.
But
it's funny you say that, because what did I see recently? Maybe it was in Basic Instinct. I saw something where I kind of, like, in my head, I was like, that's a conical bra. Like, maybe it wasn't. But yeah, I honestly think that's the answer. It's just, this person's super famous, and now we get to see their tits. Because it was almost always women. Like, rarely did A-list actors hang dong in movies. You know,
well, there was
like, you saw butt. Yeah.
Right. Well, I know that there's a little bit with Ben Affleck and his dick, and was it Gone Girl, I think?
Gone Girl.
The David Fincher movie.
No, I know. I love that movie. I'm trying to picture Ben Affleck's dick in my head right now, and I can't.
I think it was like in a shower.
Maybe. But even then, that's not even like a sex, or them sex in the shower.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't remember. If it did happen, it wasn't memorable.
Yeah. Poor Ben Affleck and his unmemorable penis.
One little note, just because I'm wearing the hat right now. One little thing I like about that movie is that there's a scene where in the book the character is trying to hide his identity, and so he's wearing a hat. And in the book, the Yankees hat, but because Ben Affleck's such a huge Red Sox fan,
that's right.
To wear a Yankees hat, so he wore a Mets hat. I was like, go Mets! We'll take it. We'll take it.
I remember that being a controversy. I remember that.
Good for him, because I would have done the same shit. If I'm an A-list actor like that, and it's like you have to wear Phillies hat or something, or you have to wear a Falcons hat, I'm like, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Yeah. So Oppenheimer, Florence Pugh.
Oh, that's who it is.
Florence Boobs.
Big fan.
Yeah.
orange boobs. Yeah, I like her.
Yeah.
I hope she doesn't go too weird. I have a feeling she might go down that path, which is kind of regular trajectory of young actresses. But everything I've seen her in, I think she's great in Midsummer. I saw this movie. I don't know if like anyone else saw it. It was called. Oh, I'm not doing any favors right now, but not remembering the name.
Was it Black Widow, the Marvel movie?
No,
she's in that one.
No, I don't even know. It's no, not the Watcher. Something where she plays a character who's like, there's a sick girl and they can't explain why this is in, a long time ago in Ireland or something, or Scotland or England. And she basically has to like sit by the bedside and like try and figure out what's wrong with this girl. She's kind of like a nurse, I guess, but I think she's a nurse. Yeah. And then like she rotates with the nun. Yeah. And there's some chicanery going on with the family and religious shit. But anyway, she's very good in it.
Yeah.
I think she's a great actress. And I am excited to see her in Oppenheimer now.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot she was in it.
Yeah. So check it out. It's worth watching. And one other thing I will say is that the movie is 3 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it. It moves very quickly.
That's good.
If anything, if maybe it moved a little too quickly, I'm almost kind of like, there were a few scenes where I'm like, whoa, Chris, like you could slow down, buddy. You got some legs.
I'm sure like some 4.5 hour director's cut will come out.
Yeah.
Is this his first movie since Tenet?
Yes.
Good. I believe I fucking hated that movie. That movie made me angry. We talked about angry movies. That movie made me angry. Yeah. I think I talked about that, but so because I love Christopher Nolan. I just happen to hate Tenet, but I love his Memento is like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, great one.
Movie rules. Anyhow, we're actually not just talking about Oppenheimer tonight.
Yeah, or Florence boobs. We're talking about Paul Verhoeven.
Paul Verhoeven. So I sent. Why are we doing this? Well, I sent Joe something on Instagram, just like it was actually a happy birthday. It was Verhoeven's birthday. It was like 2-3 days ago. And then kind of like I was like, oh, we need a topic, so let's do Verhoeven. And in my head, I was like, oh, we're doing this because he died.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that. I sent the picture to him saying like, oh, look, we love Verhoeven. It's his birthday. Yeah. And in my head, I'm like, oh, well, he died. Let's do an episode for him. And then I'm looking at his wiki. I'm like, when did he die? And I'm like, he's not dead. Not dead. Yeah. So we're going to do it anyway because Paul Verhoeven had a huge impact on my childhood with one movie. That's Starship Troopers. I have seen this movie either number 1 or number 2 in terms of quantity. Like in terms of views, I've seen this movie either the most or second most out of any movie in my life. The contender would be Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It was one of those movies that my friend and I would come home every day after school and we would throw one of them on. Other movies too would be in the mix, but these two are the number 1, number 2 for it's still like I watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail like 3-4 years ago, and it's every scene is fucking hilarious.
Nice.
It just holds up so well. Yeah. But so I actually went back to all of my movie list. I'm going to organize this eventually. Yeah. An Excel spreadsheet. I'm just like a boomer when it comes to Excel. But I did snatch all of my reviews for four Verhoeven movies I had seen, and then I threw on Basic Instinct last night because it actually was available, and I wrote a review for that today. So I have them all here. Starship Troopers, I didn't realize I actually did give it a 99. It's a very personal score. I thought I'd only give it 2 99s, which would be Children of Men, which is my favorite movie, and then One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I say is the best movie ever made. And basically, this is just how much it's had an impact on my life. Yeah. My fantasy football team annually for the past decade has been the Roughnecks. I like this movie. I loved it as a kid because I just loved the action and the violence, and as we're talking about the boobs. Yeah. And then when you get older, you actually like it for what it's saying, what it's critiquing. I think visually, it's just like a very cool movie. Like it's based on honestly, it's based on like a Leni Riefenstahl propaganda film. It's dystopian. It's sci-fi. It's satirical. It has Neil Patrick Harris. It has all of the best things. So I love that. Have you seen Starship Troopers?
Yeah. I think we've talked about it before, where it's like same thing when I was a kid. It's like, yeah, cool, it's violence and tits and stuff. But as you get older, I haven't watched it super recently. I probably watched like 5 or 6 years ago. But when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is actually, there's a lot more going on here. Like the satire of like being so like gung ho, like super right wing, and like this sort of glossy future, but it's very like neocon.
It's so. I mean, it was critiquing. It was honestly kind of being prescient in the sense that like this came out in '97, and the Iraq War was 2003, and that's what's critiquing. Like we can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Contrive like tragedy and whatnot. The 9/11 was. I don't believe that at all. Like that's very much real. But the like. Well, yeah, but that had nothing to do with Iraq and just like using our dominance and fighting what we think is a inferior enemy and making them out to be, you know, like literal monsters and also what I love about this movie that's very personal to me is the commentary that it has on sex versus violence, because, and I'm sure I've said this before many episodes, but so I had the VHS for this, and my dad had it so that they actually scrambled the sex scenes. Like, not that there are really sex scenes in the movie. It's more like there's a naked shower scene. There's like kind of a sex scene where it's more like implied, and you don't like see any thrusting or anything. But there are scenes with boobs, and like those were scrambled. There's not hardcore pornography. Just women in a shower. But what wasn't scrambled and was totally fine were guys getting their limbs ripped apart, their brains sucked out of their heads, like their bodies melting in acid. Like that was all fine. But some soapy tits in the shower, not fine. I do think that's a lot to say on like American culture, like our pop culture. So I always found that very, very interesting. I never brought that up to my dad. Maybe I will next time I go over there for dinner. Be like, why'd you build tits? For
me, you know what's funny about that co-ed shower scene is that he tried to attempt that with Robocop, which is probably my favorite Verhoeven movie. So he did 3 terrific sci-fi, like super violent sci-fi satire, like sort of like darkly comedic satire, satirical films: Robocop, Total Recall, and Starship Troopers. With Robocop, it took place in the sort of like not too distant future of Detroit. But there's a scene, and it's very brief, and he goes, I wanted to portray this future where we were so desensitized to sex and nudity that like guys and girls can share a locker room and it wouldn't cause any problems. So there's one scene in a locker room, and like you briefly see like tits in the background as well as guys, you know, changing.
I see it. Like, I see the tits. I see them. They can't impress me.
Where's Waldo? It's sort of thing. Is that, and he goes, but you know, it's funny because like I love Robocop so much, and so I listen to like the audio commentary, and he's talking. He goes like, yeah, but we didn't really get a chance to fully explore the gender dynamics of the future in Robocop, but I was able to return to it in 10 years later in Starship Troopers. But yeah, no, I like how, maybe a little bit of background on Paul Verhoeven. So he's Dutch, which means he's from the Dutchlands, I guess.
Netherlands. Nope. Netherlands.
So then he's neitherish.
He's Netherlandish.
There we go. But yeah, so
he's hollandaise. He's hollandaise sauce.
But real quick, he was always like, he spent like the first 15, 20 years of his career as like the sort of artsy fartsy European director, making films that had a lot of graphic violence and sex, and so his first American film was Robocop, which is weird. It's like,
oh, was it really?
Yeah, it was. It seems so out of left field because it's like saying like, oh, like, Marvel's going to do another Iron Man movie. Let's get Werner Herzog to direct it. Sort of like, just like, why would you get this European artsy guy to do a guy in a metal suit movie? So for whatever reason, the guys at Orion Pictures, I think it was, they reached out to Paul Verhoeven because it was such a cheesy script that like all the big directors in Hollywood didn't want to do it. So like, well, let's reach out to this guy. And Paul Verhoeven thought it was stupid, and he threw it in the trash. But then his wife took it out, and she goes, there's actually some more, you can do something with this. And so he turned it. one into like a critique of like sort of 80s Wall Street, the whole like Reagan, you know, hyper capitalist, hyper consumerist era, and then he also turned it into a metaphor for Jesus. He saw RoboCop as like a futuristic, like
Really?
yeah, as a futuristic American Jesus. It's like, you know, if Jesus was made by, you know, Braun, or like, you know, was manufactured in Detroit, like what would that Jesus look like?
We just kicked ass.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
I'm looking at my review now. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you know, the scene where the cop becomes, before he becomes robotic, he gets his hand blown off, and then he gets shot in the head. So that's supposed to symbolize, you know, the spike and the nail in the hand, and then the crown of thorns when he gets shot in the head, and he gets resurrected. And there's a part like in the big climax of the movie where he's walking like in a big puddle thing. But he's like, yeah, like this is like a futuristic American Jesus, just kicking ass. So it's actually kind of interesting when you watch it without, you're like, huh, this is actually kind of interesting. But I love Paul Verhoeven's satire of American culture.
Yes, I'm looking at my review for RoboCop. I gave it a 87.
Yeah,
so that's great.
Yeah.
I say, I won't read the whole thing, but it's like, warning: if you're averse to saying "fuck yeah," don't watch this movie. The plot is simple and tasty. Yada yada. What I say here is like, Kerwood Smith, with an all-time receding hairline as Boddicker, is our villain and leads a multiracial criminal enterprise, which always warms my heart. There's really one thing you see in movies. It's like there's like multiracial gangs and stuff, and it's like, oh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't really happen in real life. Usually they're ethnic, or they're like Italian or black or Mexican or whatever. Usually there's not too much intertwining, even if they do business together. But it's one thing I just love about movies. And also I forgot that Rob Bottin. Rob Bottin. Yeah, he did the effects. He did the effects. Bottin conjured up something straight out of The Thing when Emil plows into a tank of toxic waste, causing his flesh to fall off the bone like Central Texas barbecue. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So one thing I did love about RoboCop too, just like from a aesthetic standpoint, is that it's totally unnecessary for them to keep his like his chin exposed, mouth and chin. Like, why would they do that? But it like adds the human element to it. Like, I think that's actually super important, like that little detail. I think if you had completely covered his face, which would have made sense, I do think that takes away something from it. I think the fact that you can see his like exposed, like, you know, mouth and down is a very like a good decision. I have no idea if Verhoeven had to do with that, but the writing explicitly said that. But that was a very like smart choice.
Yeah. It was. There are a lot of cool little touches. It's a surprisingly stylish movie too, because there are a lot of like you know like in between the main film, like there are a lot of commercials, these phony commercials and news segments, kind of commenting on just like this hyper consumerist America. And so there's a commercial for a car called the 2000 SUX, meaning that it sucks. But it's. But like I just love that where it's just like, and there's a lot of commentary too about like how like you know the police was becoming more militarized, and how
man, I mean fuck, that's like that nails exactly what happened.
Yeah
Again, and but he's so far. I mean, that really happened in America because our wars all ended, but that was like 20 years later. These wars ended in the Middle East, and then all that shit came back. And of course the weapons manufacturers still want their contracts fulfilled and re-upped, and then all this goes to like towns of 5,000 people are getting like military grade riot
like this very tactical
tactical weapons and it's very I noted that is very cool. Once I was reading my review again, one thing I love is the scene where there's that weapon, right, that like automatic weapon thing that just like malfunctions during a board meeting.
Oh yeah, Ed 209, the big robot thing. Yeah,
it like lights up that guy.
Blows him to pieces.
Yeah,
and then somebody just and so like when he's just riddled with bullet holes and he's obviously dead. Somebody goes, somebody call a medic. And it's like,
so fucking funny. Yeah. Oh yeah, I have here. The film is broken up with fake commercials with the intention of adding context to this near future world, much like he does in Starship Troopers, and he does do that, but more like propaganda stuff.
Yeah.
I like the version. So I know here I like the version of the board game Battleship, but with nukes aptly named Nukem.
Yeah.
So like that's very interesting too.
Yeah. So Ed Neumeyer, who co-wrote RoboCop, also wrote Starship Troopers. So, which is cool because you can definitely see like that same sort of tongue-in-cheek, let's make fun of, like the hyper-conservative,
of making fun of like capitalistic greed of the 80s, the like over militarization of police. The kind of like becoming numb. Also, what I love about this movie is I love movies that like don't always take place in New York or LA. Or even like San Francisco, like Detroit, like awesome. Like more movies need to take place in cities like Detroit. I think this I think was very political too. Like even in the 80s, Detroit had very much deteriorated like from its
funny because it takes place in Detroit, but they shot it mostly in Dallas, Texas, which at the time was like more futuristic looking, was more modern, kind of forward thinking. But yeah, there's so much great like subtle irony in the movie. So like during the scene where those two thugs are about to rape that woman, and they're about to rape her, and there's a big billboard behind them, and it says the future has a silver lining. But I like how RoboCop shoots him in the dick. Like that was such a cool scene. But it's like
RoboCop's like, sweet.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Anything else you want to talk about RoboCop?
No, I think I've said everything I need to say on that.
Hold on, what's his name? Who's the actor?
Alex?
No, Peter Weller.
Peter Weller. Yes.
What else is he in? I feel like I've not seen him in a lot of stuff.
He was in a recent Star Trek movie, or I think it was like in 2011, like one of the big Star Trek movies he played.
I don't give a shit about Star Trek. Anything else?
Okay. He was in Buckaroo Banzai and Adventures Across the Eighth Dimension. I think it was some cheesy 80s flick. That's like a cult classic now. No. John Lithgow's in it.
Have you seen The Last Starfighter?
No, I've only seen parts of it.
Okay, that popped up for something for me. Like that's right up my alley, so I added that. But it's like some 80s alien sci-fi that's really cool. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, but I added it to my list.
With very bad dated CGI. All the effects on CGI.
Like Dune.
Yeah. RoboCop. Check it out.
Oh yeah, we love RoboCop. Is that your favorite? Verhoeven?
I think so. I think that's my favorite. Yeah. I think maybe because I was so pleasantly surprised. I always knew that it was like a cult favorite, and then when I finally watched it, I was like, "Yeah, this is a kick-ass action movie." But it's also pretty smart. Like, there's some really cool commentary. In it as well.
I mean, and I just love practical effects, and that is like you have to see it for But that's how I end when I'm saying it's like if you're a cinephile or you like Verhoeven or just like practical effects junkie like this, you got to see this one.
Yeah.
Then Total Recall. Should we discuss that?
Yeah.
Total Recall is 1990, 90. So do you want
Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Arnie. This movie gets. So I gave this an 85. I'm still like great. 85, a little less than RoboCop. It's very visually appealing. Like I love the way this movie looks. Very futuristic. I love the idea of like Total Recall, like the business. Yeah, it's actually based off of which we're going to do an episode on. Do Android
Philip K. Dick?
Cheap. Yep, this is a Philip K. Dick short story called
"We Can Remember For You Wholesale." Yeah,
we can remember for you wholesale. I can't even give, and I watched a video I'd seen about Total Recall because I watched this a few years ago, probably two years ago. So I watched a video from Cinefix about just refresh my memory, and I can describe this movie like the synopsis. It's too confusing. Basically, it's a guy, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is a spy, but he doesn't. Yeah, do you want to take this one?
It's funny, like I feel like that element it takes such a back seat to the main plot in many ways, where it's like, is he or isn't he? But like, so I guess he's working for an agency, but he doesn't realize it. So they implanted fake memories, and they gave him like a fake wife, and he's like a construction worker, just like a very average dude on Earth.
Yeah.
And he decides for whatever reason to there's this agency where it's like, instead of paying to go on an actual vacation much cheaper, they can just give you memories of a vacation, and they'll even give you like, you know, photographs and passports. And
brilliant, man. Like that idea is so brilliant.
It's a really cool idea. And so just for the hell of it, he goes, oh, you know, I'll take a vacation, like, you know, it's a simple procedure, and I'll have all the memories of going to Mars, because it takes place in the future, so there's interplanetary space travel at the time. But when they subject him to the procedure, they accidentally like unleash the like secret agent personality, which reawakens, and then he beats them all up, and then they have like knock him back out again. But that alerts his I guess agency that he works for, and so they're coming after him. So he's kind of like, am I an agent, but am I not? And so he's leaving clues for himself, and
and then it's like he's talking to himself, and is that legitimate or not? And I mean, this movie came out 33 years ago, but I still don't want to spoil it. I don't know, maybe we can. So anyway, he wrote We Can Remember For You Wholesale in 1966. That is so cool. And he thought of this, like this idea of the implanting memories, because it does. I mean, there's definitely some commentary there that I don't think he could have foreshadowed with, like, it does feel like there's a strain of, I don't know, travel or like that's solely about, you know, the gram, right? That'd be like the shorthand for it, like solely about the pics to get the likes. And it's not about the experience. It's about the memory. So it's like, well, what if we just bypassed all that for you? And we just got you in that picture with like the crystal clear waters in Thailand or whatever, and you don't have to pay to do that, and you'll get all the likes. And there's kind of movie about this that came out last year on Hulu, where a girl pretends to go to Paris and just edits pictures, but then there's a terrorist attack there, so she gets caught and all that. But it's kind of that same concept. But I don't know. That's like that's what I love, and honestly, that's what I love about sci-fi. That's why I've written sci-fi, like, because you just don't know, and you don't know something that from 1966 could still be like we're talking about in 2023, and it feels as like relevant as ever. I think that's so cool.
So there were plans of making a sequel to Total Recall that was based on another short story by Philip K. Dick, and it was Minority Report. And so Schwarzenegger was attached, and he was going to play the role that Tom Cruise was going that ended up playing, where he's now a cop and he's doing that whole thing. But you know, there was a lot of like back and forth between producers, and then ended up becoming a Spielberg movie.
You know, I've never seen Minority Report.
Oh yeah. I want to revisit it. I remember watching it when it first came out. I only watched it once, so it's like 2002 or 2003. And I remember thinking it was just like kind of like a very cold movie, because I was so used to, like, you know, Indiana Jones and E.T., and then this is like a very bleak depiction of the future, so I was expecting like something, you know, more interesting. But I know it got good reviews when it first came out, so maybe I was not at the right age to fully appreciate the movie. But anyway, Total Recall, that movie also had Rob Bottin doing, you know, all the makeup and animatronic effects, and they're pretty fucking killer.
Intense ones here, like that because they're on Mars, and you know what, it's oxygen is at a premium. And basically there's like a company that runs Mars and like controls all the oxygen. I loved the like little city that they had, like with like the bordello, and I thought that was so cool. I love sets like that. It was very indulgent. And you know, they have the hookers with the prostitutes with like 3 breasts,
3 tits,
and they have the little person. Little person,
I guess
like
so.
the little person shooting the machine gun is so awesome. Like I just want that as a gift, just like her shooting the Uzi or whatever, not the Uzi, but like the machine gun is so sweet. It's like, is he a lackey? Is he an agent? Is he just a regular guy? It's like, what's real, what's not real? It's very much sort of like, and I think doesn't even take a red pill in it. Is that where the red pill, blue pill comes from in Matrix? Like,
Oh, that's right. They tried to give it to him. They tried like, oh, if you take this pill, then you'll wake up in the real world. But then he ends up spitting it out and shooting that guy in the head.
But that's the opposite of the Matrix, right? In the Matrix, it's the blue pill. You go back to like mundanity.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the red pill is what he takes, right? Neo. I'm not the biggest fan, to be honest. Like, it's something I'd revisit, but I don't. Yeah. I'm not like a big Matrix guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, like there's that like literal red pill, like the term red pill.
Yeah.
You know, now is used in a more political sense. But it's the same thing, like waking up to reality.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's a whole kind of what's the term? Not like freak, disfigured. Like what am I trying to say?
They're all like mutants.
Mutants. Yeah, that's it. Like they're these mutants, which is very, very sweet CGI.
Yeah.
And kind of rebel, like a rebel angle to it.
Yeah.
It's a really cool movie. Sharon Stone, which we're going to talk about her again, but she's in it.
It's so funny because she has a brief love scene with Schwarzenegger in the beginning of the movie, and she refused to get naked. And then so like in the audio commentary for Total Recall, Paul Verhoeven's like, yes, you know, we tried to shoot, we wanted her to take more clothes up, but she didn't want to. But I got my revenge on her in Basic Instinct.
Yep. Yeah, man. Well, we're going to talk about that.
Real quick, I was reading this quote from Paul Verhoeven talking about working with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Paul Verhoeven, for those of you who don't know, he's kind of a nut. He's just like a wacky, like intense, crazy guy. Yeah. And he's not intimidated by anybody. And so this quote just brings me a lot of joy. Arnold has no ego. You can say anything to him. In fact, during his first day on the set of Total Recall, he sat me down and he told me, I won't be offended if you talk to me in a direct manner. You say what you feel. That made it easy because I wouldn't have to be diplomatic and say, Arnold, could you perhaps move over here and give me a different angle? I could just go, Arnold, this is bad. You look stupid. But like he's just like that very blunt European, like just do the thing like I told you to. And then
very Northern Europe. They do. Yeah, I have a little of that in me. One thing I noted here, I'm just again scanning my review. I go, side note, I love how Arnie's accent in any movie is never questioned, sort of an unwritten rule. Like no one ever goes like, why does this American have a Central European accent? Like it's never questioned. And I do love that about it. Like in other stuff, it would drive me nuts. But he's an exception.
I honestly, I gotta say, I'm a huge Schwarzenegger fan, but I think in this movie, this is probably some of his best acting. Like, there's actually a little bit of subtlety because he's playing two different versions of himself. Yeah, and, I mean, it's not Oscar caliber stuff, but it's like he plays like the smarmy agent guy, and then he also plays the guy who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing and where. It's like he actually does a decent job. Like, there's a little bit of subtlety for him. Yeah. So
he's good. It's not like Sully, I kill you last. What that commando? Sully, I like you. That's why I kill you last.
Remember when I said I kill you last? I lied.
That's a ridiculous movie. I haven't seen that movie since like high school. That's a ridiculous movie.
Yeah. He doesn't have too many corny lines. There's one where Sharon Stone keeps manipulating. She keeps trying to manipulate him. And to be like, oh, honey, and like we're married, remember? And then he shoots her in the head, and then he goes, consider that the divorce.
Yep. I just rewatched that.
Oh man,
the divorce.
But and I will say, Rob Bottin knocked out of the park with like the puppets where like they're exposed to Mars's atmosphere, and then like the eyes are bulging out and the tongue's sticking out. Like that was so cool,
so disturbing. Yeah. And so he did the Thing, right?
Yes.
And that was before this. That was early 80s.
That was 82. Yeah.
82. Yeah. So this is 8 years later. I mean, it's so goddamn good.
Yeah. And he won his only Oscar for this movie as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, he deserves so much more. He's a fucking man.
Oh hell yeah. But
I like how Verhoeven, at least in these movies, like these 5 I've seen, you notice a lot of actors that appear in multiple movies. Like Michael Ironside, I believe, is also in Starship Troopers.
That's right. He played the high school teacher guy.
Yeah, the high school teacher. He's actually Sharon Stone's husband.
Yeah.
In this.
Yeah. I met Michael Ironside once at a film festival.
Oh,
years
did
ago.
you?
Yeah, yeah.
Was he nice?
He actually was, and it's funny because the movie that he was in, it was some indie movie that was actually written and directed by the Pink Ranger from the Power Rangers, Amy Jo Beth or Amy.
Oh, yeah.
I got my picture taken with her. Yeah,
the Pink Ranger.
Yeah. I had such a huge crush on her as a kid, man.
So did I, dude.
But he was in this sort of dramedy that she wrote and directed, and he played. I totally forgot I was him. He played like a lovable goofball uncle, and
really?
because it's funny because he always plays like very intense.
Yeah,
like like a lot of villainous characters, but in here he's played this lovable goofball. I'm like, holy shit! Like you're actually really good in this.
I like that. I like when you see actors do that, like give range. I mean, of course, if they're going to be great at one thing, like amazing, I love it too. But it's like it reminds me of Tywin Lannister, that actor in Game of Thrones, who's like the most manipulative and calculating actor. In the show, and he's fantastic, but then he's also like a flamboyant gay guy in Spice World or something. It's very funny. Yeah. I don't know his name, but he's like a very intense, like classically trained British actor. I think they all are really over there. It's kind of what they do. But all right, anything else on Total Recall? That's something I would rewatch that actually. Yeah, I'd rewatch all these. At least, I've rewatched Starship Troopers 1,000 times. Total Recall and Robocop, I would. So now, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, no, there was a quote I want to read from you because he kind of talks about like, a lot of his movies are pretty extreme in terms of like sex and violence and things and things like that. But there's this quote where he kind of talks a bit about like why he does that. As a director, my goal is to be completely open. Just look at how I portray sex in my films. They're considered shocking and obscene because I like to carefully examine human sexuality. It has to be realistic. I like documentaries, therefore reality is important to me when I do fiction. It is often related to my own life, my Dutch background. The art scene in Holland has always attempted to be realistic. The Dutch painters of 400 years ago were meticulously realistic. The example I always go to, that I always like to use, is a marvelous painting by Hieronymus Bosch called The Prodigal Son. It is a painting of a brothel, and in the corner is a man pissing against a wall. You would never, ever find anything like that in an Italian, French, or English painting of that epoch. Sure. The Dutch have always been more scientific, interested in detail, certainly less idealistic and more realistic. The sex scenes in The Fourth Man and Turkish Delight were based on real experiences I had or a friend had. It is very personal. Of course, I must admit that I love to shock audiences. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see his point, especially with like Vermeer is known for like hyperrealism and it's very beautiful. But like Hieronymus Bosch, I mean, his paintings are insane. Like Hieronymus Bosch.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's like monstrous, hellish stuff. It's like people always use Hieronymus Bosch paintings when it's like this is what Twitter looks like. Like that's like it, I love them. They're the most like Renaissance religious insanity type like hell fiend paintings that I actually remember the first time I saw a Bosch painting. I was like blown away. I remember being like, what is this? There's like bird armed things eating people and like just it was really it definitely had a impact on me, but I would not I just don't know what he's talking about like realistic, but I see his point with the Dutch being a very practical people. I mean, I think the Dutch like invented like basically our current financial system, like the financial system of the West, something like that. I think Belgium claims some of that too. Like Bruges, I think might have. I was in Bruges, and I think they created the first like stock exchange. Don't quote me on that. But the Dutch, they were very much they were very mercantile people, right? Those Dutchmen. Brilliant people. I mean, really like built back a bunch of their country, like whatever that's called, where you drain the water and create more land, which is very cool. But waffles, that's Belgium. Oh no, never mind. Yeah. Well, anyway. But you want to talk Basic Instinct? You watched that one recently? Yeah. So the other two. So I've seen 5 Verhoeven movies.
Benedetta and Basic Instinct. I watched Basic Instinct last night. It is my least favorite Verhoeven movie, but definitely still, I think, worth a watch. I gave it a 69.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
I
I know.
why.
I didn't even write that. Like, I did. I had it between like a 68 and 71, and then I usually mull it over a little, and then I pick a number.
Right.
But no, I'm giving that 69. And I said it like you don't have to know the movie to know the leg cross scene. Everyone knows that movie. It's probably one of the most like iconic scenes. Like if you do like 100 most just iconic scenes, that's probably one of them. Like that moment where Sharon Stone flushes her cooter at a room full of suit wearing the detectives. It is a movie that is the definition of. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's meta for Verhoeven, but it kind of is. It's like the most. You like sex, you like violence. Well, Basic Instinct, baby. It's you have not seen this movie, right?
I have not.
Okay,
but I know that Newman from Seinfeld is in it.
Yep. Wayne Knight.
Yeah, that's right.
Which Wayne Knight is such a great name.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a Wayne Knight. Like
I know. Yeah.
Wayne Knight is a superhero name. Like,
yeah.
But anyway, he's a very small role actually. I think people know him so much for that movie because he's like sitting directly across from her when she crosses her legs. Like he's the one questioning her pretty much. It's a movie where the first scene, honestly, it almost felt like a tease because you go in knowing it's a Verhoeven movie, or I do, because that's why I put it on. The first scene is it's a blonde woman, an attractive woman. You don't see her face, but she's riding, so to speak, a sexual partner who she has tied to the bedpost, and then starts violently stabbing with an ice pick. Like not, I mean, I guess that's redundant, but I mean, unhinged, flailing stabbing several times over, very violent. Like, and there you get that kind of typical Verhoeven violence. Like it's not the camera turns away and blood splatters the floor. This is like you see the ice pick go into this dude's face. After that scene, there's actually not a lot of that at all. Right. Very surprising to me. It's not the last time an ice pick gets used, but that was particularly jarring. $1 for the jarring jar there. And it's about a woman who writes erotic novels where the deaths in the novels are happening, or like they've happened, and they have to put it together, and she becomes a suspect because she was dating that guy. So, but it's like, well, why would I act out the kills in my own novels? Like, why, and then they're saying that's an alibi, and it's Michael Douglas who falls for her, but is also investigating her. It's a classic cat and mouse. She is very manipulative and witty, and kind of like, I mean, the definition of a femme fatale. Like the stone cold, blonde, rigid face, white clothes wearing, lives in the it has somehow, I mean, I didn't think you'd get this rich writing novels, but somehow has gorgeous views of the San Francisco Bay or whatever body of water that it takes place in San Francisco and Marin County and that whole area. And gorgeous mountaintop sort of built into the cliffs, houses and beach houses and all that shit. So kind of a stereotype in that way. But she's also, and this was a big part of this movie that I didn't think was a big part at all when I watched it, but apparently this was a huge deal when it came out. She's also bisexual. She has a girlfriend. It's like two very attractive blondes who are together. And this movie was protested from from like the quote unquote gay community for that depiction, and people, and they just don't learn, Joe.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I say, I'll get to that point, but when I say this was like they had stopped because they filmed this in San Francisco, like this was this wasn't filmed like it says Detroit and Dallas, like this was filmed in San Francisco on site, and the filming, the production had to be stopped many times. People would ruin, because it is a thriller, like who did it, who's the killer, people would like ruin the ending for moviegoers going in. But what this did was it caused people to say, well, what's the fuss about? And then they go see it, and it like shot up sales. This movie was way more successful than it is a good movie.
Right.
And of course it is like, and this happened in 1991, and they still don't fucking learn. All they did was bring attention to this movie. What I love about this, and this is why, like, and I just learned this today. I have loved Paul Verhoeven movies, you know, before this. I learned today. He said, like, he did meet with, and the producers like met with the activists and stuff like that, see if they could, you know, work something out. And he said, I'm not changing a single word from this script. Like, I'm not changing anything. And that is him doing what you just described, being like direct and no, I'm an artist. I'm making this. First of all, it's a ridiculous, like it's a totally ridiculous critique of the movie. Because, like, first of all, she's like bisexual. She doesn't get off, like, she clearly gets off power and violence. Like if it's her, no, that's the question. But we can talk about that, but you haven't seen it. But like, she's not, this isn't like, oh, the killer lesbians. Like, they're not like a lesbian couple who are just like murdering cops. Like, it's actually not, to me, that big a part of the movie. There's a jealousy aspect to it. There's some violence that comes from it. But I mean, she just does whatever she wants. And if anything, it's a very like female empowering character. Who's, you know, like she's not a like leeching off of these wealthy men who like one of her boyfriends was a boxer who like died in the ring or something. And they joked about that. It's like, well, how did she kill him? Like, what did she? And they actually make a blackface joke because apparently the guy who killed him was like a black boxer. So like, what, she get in the ring and cover her face in, you know, shoe polish or something? Like, definitely not a joke they would make in a movie today. But like, she's basically, what I'm saying is she is independently successful and wealthy. At least I believe so. Like, she lives in these amazing places. She drives. And what I love about these movies in the late 80s, early 90s, I love the cars so much because they don't look real. Like, they look fake. A good example would be Wolf of Wall Street. I think it's a Lamborghini. I think it's a Lamborghini, right? He's like white. Like, when I see those cars, they look like toys. They don't even look real. And there's like multiple of those in this movie, which I think is great. It's very much a violent, sexy. I think it's cool they said it in San Francisco, but honestly, I think this would have been like a great LA movie. Like, when I see these cars living in the Hollywood Hills, the beach, like Venice Beach, I think they could have just set this movie in LA and it would have been even better. San Francisco does give its own kind of cool. I love how whenever they're in San Francisco in these scenes, it's always like, oh, there's like a parking spot right there on the street in front of like those famous houses. Like, oh, this happens to be there. But so that the critiques were ridiculous. But again, it shows that this shit was going on back then too. Like, back in the early 90s, and it just backfires. But as a movie, go ahead.
Big hit, especially for an R-rated movie. So this is not adjusted for inflation. In North America, it made $117 million. Worldwide, it made $352 million. And that's, so when you adjust for inflation, like, that's like, you know, probably $500 million. So that's fucking huge.
It was huge. Like,
and it cracks me up whenever, you know, these radical activist types, whenever they protest something like this, and like the basis of their argument is, you know, you're giving these negative qualities to, you know, a character in the film that you know, is, you know, of an oppressed group, right? But it's like, is that a stereotype? Like, the murderous lesbian, like, or the murderous bisexual, is that a stereotype?
I didn't think so. I think this was so, I mean, it's not the 60s, right? But like, this was still the end of like the AIDS epidemic, which was really like gay men, right? Like, so I don't know, but But again, it's fucking intersectional like it's intersectional.
Right.
Even if it wasn't overt, like that's how a lot of times these activists operate. They're minority, like minorities within minorities. Like I'm sure a lot of people are like, no, it's awesome. I'm sure some lesbian women were like, fuck yeah, kill all the men. Like we don't give a shit. Like it's very, very, very feminist. But no, I didn't. I think there was this more of the homosexual like deviant. I think that's more of what it was. Like it's just not okay. It's not only do we not do like the nuclear family and we're not accepting all that. It's like, but we're also gonna like kill for fun. And I just don't think that's a correct critique at all. Like she got off on this stuff. Again, if it was her, I mean, I guess it was. That's one thing I didn't. So well, to finish with this point is no, I think it was people even like today, and I think even back to the 60s and back to whenever. It's a lot of people who want purpose. Like they don't, they just, their friends are doing it. It sounds good. They might be unemployed. It gives them a reason to feel like they're on the right side of history, and it's just really stupid. Instead, what I think it's like Sharon Stone here is a example of like a self-made woman who like an independent woman who can basically get whatever man she wants and also create art and live in like incredible houses and drive amazing cars and I think she should be celebrated. Except for the murdering parts.
I've only seen bits and pieces of the movie, but like she seemed like a very fun character to watch. Like just like, man, what a cool kick-ass. Even if she was a malicious bitch, it's sort of like, but she's really fun to like watch. Like she kicks ass. Like
she does. And it's like I said, it gets a little I don't know. It's I don't even think it's a very long movie, is it?
2 hours and 7 minutes long.
Okay, so yeah, it is on the longer side. So one thing, and I said this, one thing that's I think lost on me is that I didn't even find her to be the most attractive woman in this movie. Like, I think her name's Jeannie Triplehorn. Like I just find her more attractive, and so like maybe that was kind of luck, because I think Sharon Stone is supposed to be like show-stoppingly good looking too. I think that's the point of her, but I just don't personally find that. Like she just didn't have that effect on me like she had on a lot of men in the movie. But yeah, Jeannie Triplehorn, that like so what I didn't like about this movie was too many loose ends. Like it wasn't, there were some moments that are like, well, why would they do that? Like, why would they meet at this office building? Why would she be reaching for her keys when she has a gun pointed at her? I know I'm being pretty broad here. There is some, like I joked in the movie, it feels like no one locks their doors, and people like half the scenes are just someone waiting in someone else's house or apartment when they walk in, or like people like walk into apartments. I'm like, where's the locks? Like, where is, it's like people just walk in and they're there, and I found that to be, but I guess what I also saw was maybe that was on purpose, and that sets up this other scene where maybe Sharon Stone's character, Catherine, framed Triplehorn's character, whose name's Dr. Beth something, I forget. But that wasn't explained, like that wasn't shown, that wasn't even hinted at. At least that I remember, and I watched this yesterday. So it's like, well, okay, if she's the killer and she does do this, then can you explain why this character had all of these things in her apartment? Like, I don't know. It felt kind of sloppy, and some of that time could have been used, 2 hours, 7 minutes. Some of that could have been used to clarify those questions, or to kind of set them up better instead of like having another car chase scene. Or another. I mean, honestly, I talked about the lack of sex scenes in movies. Now, this movie had like 4 or 5.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's one other Paul Verhoeven movie that I've seen that's not very good. It was,
what is it?
Hollow Man.
Oh, Hollow Man. Yeah.
And I think he even said that he didn't like it. That it was just kind of like a big Hollywood thing where it's like, okay, I'm just doing it for the paycheck.
I don't know what that's about.
It's a Kevin Bacon Invisible Man movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So it's Invisible Man, but called basically Hollow Man.
Yeah.
When did that come out? In like the 2000s,
early 2000s. Yeah.
It
got an Oscar nomination for visual effects. Like they were pretty groundbreaking for their time. But other than that, it was very forgettable. he goes nuts and he starts killing people. So it's kind of turned into like a generic slasher movie. Yeah, I think he was maybe going through some money problems, and so he's like, yeah, I'll do it. It's got, yeah. Oh, and then I have seen Showgirls.
I don't know that one either.
That was ballyhooed as like the first sort of like mainstream NC-17 movie because it came out like 95.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't like it. It was just dumb because like by the time like I got into that, it's like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of tits and shit, but it was just sort of like, I want Robocop though. I want Arnold Schwarzenegger to go to Mars. Like,
is it about strippers?
Yeah, it was about some chick from I think Saved by the Bell, the blonde chick with the curly hair. Yeah, she's just some trailer trash chick who goes to Las Vegas to become a showgirl, and then it's just like
gets caught in the underworld, the underbelly.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a very sleazy movie. But like they were really trying to like because made by a big studio with a big budget, so they're like, oh yeah, this is an NC-17 movie that like everyone's going to want to watch. Because at the time, like NC-17 movies, even if they were made by a bigger studio, they had a smaller budget, and they was just sort of like, all right, here's a $2 million. Maybe you get one kind of A-lister, but other than that, like that's kind of it. But this is like, yeah, we're going to really go all out, and it still flopped because it was still just a bad movie. It was really cheesy, but all
right,
yeah. So I do not recommend that.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Yeah,
the last movie I've seen is called Benedetta. This came out only 2 years ago, 2021.
Yeah,
I give it an 83. I don't remember this movie as much. Just I don't know why. It's kind of less memorable than RoboCop and Total Recall and Basic Instinct. I just watched last night, but it's good. It's very good. So I'm just gonna read it, and I have a short review here.
Yeah,
because you haven't seen it.
No,
it's a film about a controversial and fascinating historical figure, Benedetta Carlini, who's played by Virginie Efira, who had a direct connection with God, was a complete fraud, or both. It is this push-pull between her versions with God and a new definition for loving Jesus, and the minxy expression she makes with her co-convent lover, Bartolomea, played by Daphne Patachia, that will have you questioning it all. However, and then I say he made, these movies, which I love, which we've talked about. After reading the subject matter of the movie, colloquially referred to as the lesbian nun movie, I was expecting a far more graphic ride. While there's sex, violence, and plenty of sacrilegious imagery, it's largely subdued for its auteur. The plot includes a trial and investigation, yes, in that order, torture, plague, flagellants, suicide, conspiracy, and Jesus on the cross with a tuck, ? The ending was a little sudden, but added a dimension to the story. I appreciated her faith in God was steadfast. As I read that, I don't remember the ending necessarily. I don't know if she was executed. She may have been. It was definitely a sacrilegious movie.
Yeah.
So if you're not cool with that, don't watch it.
Right.
But it was very interesting and was good. I think it was a lot better than I expected.
Right.
I
didn't
maybe
feel like a Verhoeven movie where when you were watching, you're like, this feels like.
Yeah, I did, because he's tackling something big, like a big institution, the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I think I put it on my movie list because it was called the lesbian nun movie. Like that's what people were calling it, the lesbian nun movie.
Yeah.
And she was, and what I thought was cool was she's based on a real person.
Oh,
she's based on a historical figure.
Yeah. So
I thought that was interesting too. I don't know how much of it was, fictionalized, but yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, if only he used Hollow Man as like critique of like Big Pharma or something. That could have been really cool. But
well, he can't do it all. We do love him though.
Yeah,
what's
Verhoeven?
What is he coming out with anything else soon?
Let's see here. I have his IMDb.
Let's take a look. Let's look here.
Upcoming. He's got two things. Het Geheim van een God who and then Young Sinner.
Was that your attempt at Dutch?
No, that was actually
what you do. Is that
Young Sinner?
There's a funny tweet where someone was like, Norwegians giving me shit, get the herka-durka-durky shit out of here. And someone was like, so this tweet made it to Norwegian Twitter and they are not happy.
Oh man.
Where the fuck is? I don't see anything. Where do you see the coming soon? Or the last thing I see here is I have L on my list. I have it on my actually there. Psychological thriller.
So if you go to director,
I'm on his filmography. Usually it shows what's coming up.
And then under upcoming, it has two things.
Wait, are you on Wikipedia?
No, IMDb.
Oh. Okay. Well,
yeah, I do not know what Het Geheim van een God Hujuelig is about. There's no synopsis for that yet. But Young Sinner, though, ooh, this looks interesting.
Is Turkish Delight good? I feel like a lot of people talk about this Turkish Delight.
Ooh, I've never seen it.
Erotic romantic drama film.
Ooh, from 1970 something.
Oh, 73. Turkish. I don't know. Dutch cinema. Who are any other Dutch directors?
I think he's the only one. I think
literally the only one. He's the only one allowed.
He was the one who brought the camera.
The rest of you have to make clogs. Jeez. The tulips. The tulip. What's cool? Tulips were one of the first. I don't know if it's one of the first, but at least a notable. I'll say I'll stick to it. One of the first kind of what's it called? Like what would a term be for something like Beanie Babies? Remember when those like became insanely popular?
Yeah,
they caused like tulips basically caused massive inflation in the Netherlands or something.
Really?
Something like that. I'm not a Dutch historian, but like they were, I think, one of the first recorded, consumer products like that. Like it wasn't like food.
Oh.
It wasn't medicine. It was like purely for a consumer, like just people liked them. And it was a symbol of, I don't know, being civilized or whatever.
Right.
And I actually like to look more into that. I'll get back to you on that one, Joe, about the Dutch tulips. This topic that I just brought up very confidently.
Yes.
Yeesh. Oh, this movie looks fucked. I just kind of scrolled over this. The Fourth Man.
Oh yeah. That's
that creepy ass thing. Is that a person? Looks like a puppet. Die wird man. All right. Gerard Rivet, an alcoholic bisexual novelist. Sign me up.
Yeah.
All right. So L is on my list. Well, I'll bring that up again. But that's the only movie on here that I have not seen that I plan to watch by Verhoeven.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, man.
Anything else you want to talk about, Joseph?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, I'm seeing Barbie tomorrow. I'll let you know how that goes.
Oh, yeah. Don't say a single fucking thing. I don't give a shit. You're not gonna do the Barbenheimer thing?
No, I didn't get what that was. Is that just like are there theaters where you can actually see like 2 for the price of 1, or is that just like a joke? It's like a meme.
I think it's a meme, but I do know I work with the gal who was actually like I'm like she actually booked like a 2 like a double feature, but I don't know if it was like a deal or if she just picked like, oh look, there's one showing at 2 o'clock and then another one showing at 5 o'clock.
Anyone can do that. I would if they were selling like, no, we'll give you like 2 for the price of 1, like a discount or something, or I would do that. I think that's cool. I don't care. It's a bang bang.
But yeah, well, okay, we'll talk Barbie next week then, I guess.
Oh yeah, and we have a Patreon that if you want. We have a Patreon and merch and different tiers.
The website is patreon.com/The Reckless Musecast. Yeah, come check it out. You
should check that out.
Check it out. Smash that join button.
Smash that sign up.
Donate button.
Donate to the give us money.
Yeah. And also if you are a writer, the Reckless Muse publication on Medium is always looking for writers. So if you got poetry or short stories or commentary or weird experimental crap, send it our way. And the link is in the description. So
that's right.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, stay reckless, Ben.
Stay reckless, Jose.